Okay, welcome back. So, today we are going to do solving systems by using a different method. So, yesterday we did substitution. Today we're going to do elimination. Now, elimination is a little bit harder than substitution. We see that there's a lot more complicated equations here. We have two equations that look pretty complicated, but like I always say, I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible. We're going to write steps over here, or maybe down here in this general area. Probably like in this area, we're going to write some steps, and then we're going to apply the steps as usual, like we always do. So, step one, and it's called elimination for a reason. So, step one, we are going to figure out which variable, and sorry, my handwriting is atrocious right now, which variable, so figure out which variable eliminates. So immediately right off the bat, we should have a variable that eliminates. Now you're probably thinking, okay, well, what does that mean? The term that you all usually hear in math and like in your all's generation is probably cancel. Okay, now we have to start thinking about what does it take for variables to cancel. Well, for example, this could be like a negative 8x and a positive 8x. It could be a 3y and a negative 3y. Okay, anything like that. You need the negative version of that thing and the positive version of that thing. All right, that's step one. Step two, we are going to add or subtract the remaining, and I know I'm left-handed, you can't see anything I'm doing, but I'm sorry. We are going to add or subtract the remaining variables. So remaining variables or numbers. And there are going to be both. So one of the variables are going to eliminate, and then we're going to add or subtract the remaining variables and numbers. Okay, now we move on to step three, and this is where things really start getting interesting. We're going to solve for x or y. Okay, or y. It could be either. Solve for x or y. And at this point, this should just be a beautiful one-step equation. All right, this should just be a very simple one-step equation to have to do that. Okay, so I'm going to let you kind of breathe and look at these steps, write that down if you need to, pause the video if you need to. All right, so unfortunately, we're not done here. We do have a step 4 and 5. So step 4, we are going to substitute. So we're going to substitute x or y, and it should be a number at this point, back into the easier equation. And you're probably like, what does that mean, easier equation? So let me kind of explain that further. The easier equation is going to be the one with maybe like not as many negatives, maybe that has like smaller numbers. We just always want to make things easier for ourselves because, you know, we just want the easiest route when it comes to math especially. So step 5, then you're going to put your answer. So put answer in an ordered pair. So remember when I said yesterday in the video that, ordered pair, that our answers for system of equations always go in ordered pairs. That's just how we do things in math, in system of equations. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to look at one example where it's just like this. And then we're going to look at an example that is on the Coyote and how they word things. So let's just do number 1 together. So I'm going to go ahead and circle that. Let's just do number 1 together. So if we go ahead and look at number 1, what we want to do is we want to look up and down. So substitution was like left to right, but in elimination, we want to look up and down. So what do I mean by that? Well, we have a positive 5y and a negative 5y. So those are going to eliminate because we have a positive version of that thing and a negative version of that thing. So that's just 0y, right? So those automatically eliminate. So we can just scratch those out. Now we're done with step 1. Figure out which variable eliminates. So we eliminated those. Now step 2 is we have to add or subtract the remaining variables and numbers. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to put parentheses around this whole thing. And what I mean by that is we're going to do 5 minus 6x, so that's negative 1x, equals something. Now we're going to do 5 minus 9, and that's negative 4. Now here's the important part of this. Let's just say, it's not, but let's just say that this was a positive 9. So let me just go ahead and cover that up. Let's say that that was a positive 9. So since that 9 would be positive, we would have to add. Okay, so it'd be 5 plus 9, which would change the whole problem. That would be 14. But since it's negative, that's why we're subtracting. All right, so now this is a beautiful one-step equation. Remember, we're going to divide by negative 1 on both sides. The negative 1's cancel. Then we're going to have x equals positive 4. Okay, star that number. Now, in system of equations, we always need an x and a y. So we have an x. Now we're going to substitute this x. So I'm going to rewrite this up here. We have x equals 4. And then I want to write down the easiest equation that I have here. So just looking at this, I would pick the top one because it has lower numbers. Okay, and there's no negatives in this. So we're going to have 5x plus 5y, I'm just rewriting that equation, equals 5. Now let me be crystal clear about what's going on here. We need to substitute this x4 in for this x right here to be able to solve for y. So I'm going to circle this equation kind of like we did with substitution. Draw an arrow to your x. Now don't substitute this 4 in for y, because this is what x is. All right, substitute the variable in, substitute this number in for x because that's what x equals. So this should look like this. 5, put in that 4, plus 5y equals 5. Just like that. 5 times 4 plus 5y equals 5. Okay. Now, just like the substitution problems yesterday, we are going to multiply these first. So this is going to be 20 plus 5y equals 5. And then this is just a two-step equation, all right? So we're going to subtract 20. This is just a two-step equation. Subtract 20. Then we should have 5y equals negative 15. And we all should know that y equals negative 3, right? Star that number. And you can circle it if you want to, but I'm really just looking at these numbers that are starred. So x equals 4, y equals negative 3. Now we need to put 4 and negative 3 into an ordered pair, and that's what I'm going to circle and check mark. So your answer is going to be 4, comma, negative 3 with a circle and a check mark, and you're done. All right, so just the basic gist of this, you're going to eliminate one of the variables. Then you're going to add or subtract down. Solve for that variable, then substitute that back into the easier equation and solve for the other variable. So I know that's kind of confusing, but we're going to go ahead and do another one together on the back because here's what I need to explain. Although these aren't too difficult, the Coyote likes to make them really difficult by putting a bunch of words in there, kind of like they do with the substitution problems as well. So let's just look at something like number 9. So let's look at number 9. Let's do number 9 together. So this just says the graphs of the lines 5x plus 2y equals 4 and 4x minus 2y equals negative 4 intersect at a point. Bam! We know that when it says this, these two lines intersect, we know it's going to be a system of equations. All right? They're just trying to scare us with these words, but this is what it looks like on the Coyote. So then it says, what is the x coordinate of that point? Now be careful here. They're really only asking for the x coordinate. So let's see if we can try to, figure that out here. So what we're going to do, just like the substitution problems, we are going to take these two equations and rewrite them in our own handwriting. All right, that's the only way that we can do this by elimination. You can't just start doing the problem. You have to rewrite these equations out and see what you're working with. So we're going to have 5x plus 2y equals 4. And then we're going to have 4x minus 2y equals negative 4. Now, something that I do want to say is that it's not always the y's that eliminate. Sometimes it's the x's, all right? So just like let's look at the front here. Just like number 2 here, the x's are going to eliminate, and then you're going to be solving for y first. So it's not always going to be the y's that eliminate. But here, we do see that this is a positive 2y and a negative 2y. So those are going to eliminate right off the bat. Now we are going to add or subtract downwards. Add or subtract downwards. So we're going to have 5. Now, this 4 is positive, so we're going to do 5 plus 4, and that's going to be 9x equals something. 9x equals something. Now, since this 4 is negative down here, we're going to do 4 minus 4. So it's going to be 9x equals 0. And then when you divide by 9, 0 divided by any number is just 0. So we're going to have x equals 0, star that number. Now, technically, this would be your answer on the coyote, technically, because it's only asking for the x coordinate. But what I want you all to do, and you will see that on the answer key, I put it in an ordered pair, just to get more practice with this, I want you to go ahead and solve for y. So we have x equals 0. Let's pick the easiest equation here. Well, I just see that the top one doesn't have any negatives, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that one. So 5x plus 2y equals 4. Now let me be very clear on what's going on. I'm going to substitute this x equals 0 in for this x right there. So we're going to have 5 times 0 plus 2y equals 4. Then we're going to multiply these first, just like we do always. So we're going to have 0 plus 2y equals 4. And then if we subtract 0, you all know that that's just going to be 2y equals 4, right? And then you would divide that by 2. And we would have y equals positive 2. So we have 0 and 2 starred. X is 0 and y equals positive 2. So then your ordered pair is going to be 0, 2. Circle, check mark. All right, so it's kind of the same process every time. You just eliminate one of your variables, add or subtract, solve down here, and then substitute back in for the easier equation. And remember I said that the easier equation just means like no negatives, maybe, or lower numbers, whichever one you think is easier for you. Okay, so if you all have any questions, please just let me know on Remind or through my email. And then I'm also going to be posting a picture of 2 more examples on your Google Classroom. Okay, so just let me know if you have any questions.